Before God began to create, he existed in himself. Himself was his reference. Aeons that cannot be captured. All we know about God is within the boundary of the syllables of creator. But you see, before God began to create, he was God. And only God knows what God was doing. And nobody can know it because we all fall within the confines of creation. But you see, this scripture revealed to us that there was a place God stayed, God dwelt, before he contemplated the project of creation. Very few people traveled far to the beginning in scripture. Very few people. And when you start studying the subject of the beginning, one thing you discover is that there are many beginnings. Beginning will only be one if you are dealing with time. If you are within the framework of time, if you say in the beginning, all of us will come to the same spot. But when you are dealing in a realm that is beyond time, beginning will have many locations. And so when you start studying the scripture, you find many beginnings referencing many realities. There is a beginning Moses found, and he said in the beginning God created. In that beginning, God began the project of creating nothing, something from nothing. So that was a reference. There was another beginning John entered in John chapter 1 from verse 1. And he said, in the beginning was the word. That beginning, God was not doing anything. God just existed as God. So the beginning of John references a person. The beginning of Moses references an activity. All of them called beginning, but different realities. The beginning of John is a person. If you journey with John to the beginning, you will meet God. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. So what John met in the beginning was not an activity. It was a being. But what Moses met in the beginning was an activity of creation. And so it goes to let you know that there are realms beyond creation. There are places beyond time. And such places, only God dwells there. No creation can travel there. We are only permitted to see from when reality began to play out. But there was a realm that existed before reality began. In fact, there was another beginning that Jesus referenced that Moses went to again. He said in the beginning it was not so. He made them male and female. That's another beginning. In that beginning, God began to deal with matters of socialization. So there are different kinds of beginning in God. But there is a realm beyond the beginning. The realm beyond the beginning cannot be referenced. That's where God goes into to plan things. And only God knows that. The reason, no matter how creative we are, we cannot be creators. At best, we can be inventors. Inventors produce things from what was. Only creator can produce from nothing. Inventors will need raw materials to create, but a creator doesn't need the raw material. That's the difference between a bara and an asa. A bara produces from nothing. So he can call forth air. Air does not come out of any, it calls it to existence. From nothing to something. Only God has that authority. Now, when God was dealing in Genesis 1:26, he journeyed back to one of such places where nobody can enter. That's where the code of creation is kept. And what God was deliberating there is to create another being that will represent him in one of his constituencies. Because when you study the scripture, you will discover that the earth realm was manned by another creation. There was a prince that was the ruler over the earth realm until that prince failed. And so when God needed somebody else, he didn't reassign the responsibility of the prince that was watching over the earth, because that earth was destroyed. And the reason it happened so is because when God creates a realm and he puts you there to man it, the life of that realm is tied to you. And so the Bible said, they know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. He said the whole foundation of the earth is out of course. So when a prince that is the governor over a realm falls, that realm will also fall. And so the first earth had to collapse. The first earth fell into chaos. And so when you study Genesis chapter 1 from verse 1, after God created the heaven and the earth, in verse 2, we saw that the earth spiraled into chaos. The word is tohu bohu. It means worthlessness, chaos, lack of coordination and control. Everything has spiraled into vanity. Because the first prince fell, the first earth fell. And so now that God has recreated the second earth, he needed another prince to man that earth. But you see, you cannot just pick another prince to man it, because the new prince, his reality needs to be tied to this earth so that he can regulate it from the foundations. And so God had to go back to the realm that was before the beginning. And it was that realm he entered where no angel can enter. And he began to negotiate with himself. And what God came out with was another novel invention that had never existed. Because the first earth was manned by a spirit. Although he had authority over the earth, but he was a spirit, an immaterial being, trying to regulate a material realm. And so there will definitely be a challenge. And so this time around, God decided to create a being that had never existed before and did not look like any other being. And he said, let us make man. And this time around, man will not be just like a spirit. Now listen to this. If God created man in the image of the Father, he would have been powerful enough. If he created man in the image of the Son, he would have been powerful enough. If he created man in the image of the Spirit, he would have been powerful enough. But what God did was that he merged the reality of the Godhead. And he said, let us make man. Not like the Father, not like the Son, not like the Spirit. Let's make man like Father, Son, and Spirit, all in one. So he created a being for the first time that could mirror the fullness of God. A being that could communicate the fullness of God.